Want to live a longer, healthier life? Discover the science-backed supplements that can help you not only live longer, but also thrive with vitality, no matter what your age. I want to welcome you to WellWaveNOW, that we're your portal for actionable wellness insights. Meet your empowerment team. That's Breck Rice, the healthcare disruptor, decoder of medication complexities, and a community and integrative wellness expert. Also with us is Dr. Bob Levine, renowned brain researcher and national leader in drug-free pain elimination. And I'm Tim Daniels, your wellness plan manager, builder of personalized wellness approaches as unique as you are to help you optimize your wellness with expertise in pulse electromagnetic field therapy. Together, we are your wellness catalysts, and we're committed to elevating your health, enhancing your functionality, and optimizing your performance at every life stage. Our objective is to provide you with innovative strategies to boost your happiness and unlock your body's full health potential. We're WellWaveNOW, where timeless wisdom lights your wellness path. Joining us again today, we are happy and excited to welcome back Arman Eckelbarger. He's a wellness thought leader, certified longevity coach, personal trainer, and IFBB pro bodybuilder with over 40 years of experience. He brings cutting-edge expertise and diligence in holistic health and mindset, nutrition, supplementation, and hormone optimization. His approach is centered on using genetic testing and blood work and experience to tailor supplementation strategies, helping clients to optimize their health at every life stage. And he's here to help us talk about that in regards to longevity.
Yeah, welcome, Arman. It's great to see you again.
Great to be back. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had so much fun with you last time talking about supplementation. Thought we'd have you back and really focus more on longevity. You know, it's one thing to live longer, but you know, what if you're not healthy when you're doing that? So let's kind of break that down a little bit, Arman, and help us better understand the difference between longevity and lifespan.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to understanding, okay, what does longevity mean to the current lifespan? So at the end of the day, what you really want to do is have a quality life and not have a lot of illness. So, because here's the deal, is if we slow down aging, slow down disease, you're going to be healthier a lot longer. And that's where the big win is understanding what you can do to have a good lab work, to have, when you go to the doctor, they're actually surprised that you don't have all the ailments that most people have because you're doing the right things. And again, you're going to feel good. You're going to be more mobile. You're going to have good mental clarity. So there's just a lot more to offer life. Now, the one thing you do have to do is make sure you got plenty of money for that extended lifespan. So keep that in mind as well.
Breck will help you with that. But also, so that's, I often say and like to remind folks that I spent 8.5 years running a home care for the elderly agency operating in the States. And that's where that importance of that health span to the lifespan really kind of came home to me. There were a number of people who might have hit an advanced age, but were bedridden and with cognitive problems. And so even if you can reach that longevity, it's good to do that with that vitality you're talking about. But you know what maybe it also is key to us is, so let's define and talk about longevity. Breck and I, when we get into our biblical discussions, I often bring up to him one thing that's which I go by, and not to denigrate anybody else's religion or their beliefs, just talking mine a little bit here, is a Christian, and I go to Genesis 6:3, where it talks about where God says, man is also still flesh, and I won't let my spirit contend with him for more than 120 years. So to me, that's that longevity, and that's kind of that cap. And so once again, and also as part of that, to make sure that I wasn't just spouting off the cuff, but some verification on that. As we got ready for this, I went back and did some research again, and there's only been one person since the 1400s, 1300s, who they believe lived past that 120 years old. I think it was a French woman named Jean Calment, and it was said she lived until 122 years and some odd days beyond that, and they opened the records and what they could verify with, died in 1997, that they say that's the one. And so I say, well, God can make an exception anytime he wants to, but that to me is that 120 is, I think, the cap to me. And so what do you people think about, so with that cap, then when do you think you actually start getting into longevity? Is it 50 years old like Bob is? Are you living long at 50 and with Bob, or is it something other than that?
You gonna go, Breck?
Because that what goes hand in hand with that, right, is what's premature, death too. I would think anything prior to 80 for me premature, but that's just my own longevity, living well, kind of the goal. But again, it's not just living, right? It's living well, to be free of disease and feel like you can still contribute to society.
Yeah, I mean, the age of mortality from the insurance industry, 81 is for a male, and then a little bit like 83 or 84 64 for females is what they go by. But when you even have an insurance policy, it goes to age 100. And that's when the policy would mature, and the cash value and the cash value policy and the insurance value would be the same. So there's one other way you can kind of go by to gauge, okay, what's the likelihood of that? So they've done their homework on it. But at the end of the day, it's just a matter of how you're feeling as you go through these different stages. Now, there's some research that says you age faster once you get past 60, you age faster once you get past 70. So there's a lot of unknowns still. But at the end of the day, if you can control the right thing, it may not make a big difference on that. So that's what we want to kind of touch on today, is just different things to be aware of. So, you can, control the controllables, as they say, versus just leaving it to nature and whatever else you want, call it.
What is the oldest client?
70.
In the 70s. What about you, Dr. Bob?
I've got one client right now that's 99 years old. It's really amazing to work with this person. She's very mentally sharp, but you got to be really careful with the physical body structure, because at 99, they're sort of, they haven't had much work done, so they're a little frail. So, but she's very responsive. It's pretty incredible. She has serious arthritis in her hands, and I've done my various hand routines with her, and she's just really responding well. She's got a bad shoulder. I've been working on that, and she's responding incredibly well to that too. So one step at a time, little by little, but it's definitely not like working who's either 30, 40, 50, or even 60, or even 70 years old like Tim. When I work on Tim, it's he's up there,
Yeah, that's true.
You look really good for 70.
Yeah, but I've been following the Arman approach, and I've been doing resistance training since I was 13 years old. You guys have heard the story, since I couldn't do a pull-up and was embarrassed and had to do that. Got supplementation. So Bob, you can go ahead and put more pressure on my hands and joints, because I've been, except for my knees that I damaged from wrestling. But aside from that, you can put more pressure on mine, because I follow the Arman path here on it.
There you go.
I'm getting on the Arman train, because he definitely brings crazy results with people. Fantastic results.
It works, I can tell you. But there's effort involved, but it does work. So that one thing I do want to say this is, as we age, though, protein is critical. So, and a lot of people don't eat enough protein as they age because their appetite suppresses. But you also have a process called anabolic resistance, where you don't absorb the protein as well. And that's why it's really important to focus on getting adequate protein, which 1 gram per pound of body of lean muscle weight is a good target.
All right.
Pound, you get 100 grams as an example.
That's right. See, Armand, you got so much knowledge. You're always ready to just put it out there and want it to go. But I want to wrap up our discussion, our part on what's really longevity, just to give the crowd and the audience a little other fact figures. Breck says the 80, Bob's working with people in their 90s. We talked about that gene called MOM. Just a little statistic. I think the World Health Organization and talks about, and they will state the global life expectancy is between 72 and 75 years of age. And they'll say developed countries is 77 to 79. And so you've got those benchmarks. But to me, that's an average. Not necessarily, that does say an average. So that's average. So you've got people living beyond that, and certainly people living below that to reach that average. But to me, then that says, getting back to kind of like the Breck saying around 80, I would say, 70, if you die before 75 or 80, it's premature. And so what we want to get out of Arman is the role of supplementation on how to get beyond that 75 and 80 and do so with that vitality that we all want in there.
Yeah. So let's dive into that. So what are the longevity and health span supplements that we need to talk about?
Well, this is that protein, Armand. What else?
So here's a couple of things to really understand about supplements well. Okay. First of all, it's a supplement. It's not to replace. That's where people, I think, go the wrong direction. So you got to do the fundamentals for longevity, which is all natural food, and then exercise, and then sleep, and then keep your hormones balanced. So you use the supplements to make sure you're getting maximum absorption of the nutrients that you need. And that's the most important thing that people need to understand. Eat quality food first, get away from the sugar, get away from the processed food, get away from the seed oils, the things that are showing not to be beneficial. And all you got to do is look around outside, and you can see how that's working. I mean, people just don't look good. They're bent over, they're frail, their mobility's not good. And nutrition is a pretty important element to all that. Now, lack of exercise would definitely improve it, but at the same time, the raw materials you're putting in are the key things that oil the machine. So let's kind of throw that in there.
We'd talked previously when you were with us a couple of weeks ago and had quite a discussion about supplementation, joint health. Reminded me of my mother was questioning. She had a lot of questions for me. She doctor orthopedic surgeon was saying, hey, she really knee replacement, and she was concerned about that, because she's like, well, they don't last forever, and so when is too early to have a joint replaced like that? And so she was in her 60s that time. Like, well, think about it this way: you want to go out and do things still now, right? right? You want to still be active. I would do it, me personally, I would do it while I still want to be active and hiking, walking around. By the time that she was planning on doing it when she was 75, 80, do you really want to still be out hiking and walking around? So, so there's kind of that give and take, right? What's the right time if that's what you have to do? But,
one of the challenges with a knee replacement or hip replacement and those types of things later in life is you're going to be bedridden for a short period of time, and you're going to lose some muscle tissue again because you're not mobile. So those things also have to be taken into account. So make them, that's why strength training needs to be done to help improve bone density, and then also the exercise to help strengthen everything so that you have that mobility long term. Now, supplementation is going to help. I'm talking about the supplements that help that, but at the same time, you need those two components to prevent it from getting really bad.
Right.
So every time you're bedridden, that's when things just go right downhill.
Absolutely. So taking that into account, and I'll give you a compound question here and follow up on Brex. But taking into account the yes for the joint thing. So what is the supplementation? And I appreciate you talking about that, Arman, not just focusing on the fact that supplementation is not the cure all, the end all, the be all, but would like to kind of understand that role in that joint preservation. And so that's one thing. That's the vitality part towards that. But now, what else do you think needs to be focused on in addition to achieve that? Is it the inflammation? I know, but what else? So inflammation, joint health, what are the things that you want to really focus on this to achieve with your supplementation for longevity?
So for good joint health and then also bone density, the bone density, you need vitamin D and K2. That's a pretty important element there. That's why you want to be checking your vitamin D level. Then on top of that, if you have any kind of joint issue, then I would focus on krill oil over everything else. Now, if you don't have any joint issue or achiness, then I would stick with just fish oil because it's a great anti-inflammatory, and it has a lot. It's also good for brain health on top of everything else. Now, if you eat a lot of fish, well, maybe not such a big deal, but most people aren't. But you can OD on fish oil. Okay, now if you have a blood thinner or something like that you're on, then that's a different element to the mix. But another thing I like to use for joint health is boswellia root, and I use that, and it's worked great for my clients, and I use it myself, and I combine that with krill oil, and it's very effective. Now you can also use MSM and chondroitin. Those I just didn't get much out of those, but it's not going to hurt you. It just depends on the budget as well as what you're trying to accomplish. And the other thing is you don't have to do these the rest of your life. You take them until things clear up, and then take a break.
Great point, Arman. That's sort of like not only can you have a drug holiday, you can have a supplement holiday, which I think is really important to consider as well. Because the body changes, we grow and develop differently every day. So at some point, it's worthwhile taking the supplement holiday and seeing how we feel, and add supplements back in as needed. The other thing I wanted to mention about joint health was that I've had some success with hyaluronic acid.
Well, that's a good
it's
one
very
too.
Inexpensive. You get it in liquid form. So that's something for people to consider who have joint.
Now, Arman, you also
one
touched
more.
more. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Bob.
Just one last question for the moment, Arman. I want to know how you deal with mineralization, because a lot of people say that humans in general are severely deficient in minerals because of the depletion of the soil and all these other factors. What are your thoughts on how to mineralize properly?
Well, that's where your vitamin mineral supplement, the right kind, can really help. And then you can also supplement with extra magnesium. People don't get enough magnesium in general. So there's a lot of different types of magnesium. So you got to figure out, okay, which one's going to be best for you. But magnesium is probably a more common one that people don't really think about or do much with. And I've done experimentation with it, and magnesium can make a nice difference in a lot of things you're doing, especially when it comes to recovery and then sleep and other areas of how your body works. So taking electrolyte is always a good thing. You just got to find the one that is the best for you. And I'm a big fan of electrolyte supplementation.
And so and just in case, so what are electrolytes, Arman, and why are you a fan of them?
So you're talking about sodium, potassium, magnesium again, and so these things all interact with the cells to move water in and out of the cells and minimize cramping and things like that. Now, one thing I'm not a big fan of when it comes to supplementation is taking this potassium. People don't understand that if you take too much potassium or you experiment with that too much, it can affect your heart. So you got to be managing these things appropriately. So I don't recommend potassium supplementation. I'd rather go magnesium. So if I have a cramping issue, I'm going to go magnesium orotate. It eliminates cramps immediately. And the other thing with taking potassium is you have to take it with some food. If you don't, it's going to give you horrible stomach cramps, and you just won't be comfortable at all. So the magnesium orotate is a much more effective source for minimizing cramping. Now you can take magnesium glycinate for sleep. It also helps with cramping and other issues like that.
I do take that for.
Yeah. So you talked about sleep there. We talked a little about the joint health. and some of the things that I think to recommend it for joint health may also help in this area. But I want to step back up again to say, what are we really trying to for longevity? What are we really trying to achieve with the supplementation? Meaning, I've heard there's some things that I look at with my work and literature that say, if you can keep inflammation down to a certain level, then it'll kick things off. But also there's things such as, do you want to keep nitric oxide production up? So what do you think are, however many fall into your area, but what are the 3 or 4 things that you really, more than that, whatever you think is the right amount, what are the key things generally that you want to help achieve with supplementation to increase the odds of longevity?
Well, you hit on the main one, which is inflammation. Inflammation creates all kinds of issues. Mm-hmm. So, it can elevate your homocysteine level, which is an inflammation marker, your C-reactive protein inflammation marker, etc. So, like if your homocysteine is elevated, which is a process of methylating or recycling your amino acids, it can lead to heart disease pretty quickly and also a serious event. So, a simple thing like B complex and trimethylglycine will solve that problem pretty rapidly. But you can have it checked by having lab work done. They'll show up right there, and then you can have it see how it's improving and getting better. But people don't check that very often, so you have to request it. And on that note, that's one easy area to take a look at and fix it. Keep the inflammation down, and again, fish oil is your number one source for that. Keeping the sugar out of your diet is also critical because it raises inflammation. It doesn't help because if your glucose stays elevated and it starts staying elevated, then it's going to start damaging the capillaries and extremities of your hands and your feet, which can lead to neuropathy. So you want to manage glucose. So one of the things I like to do to manage glucose that doesn't get talked about enough is berberine. Berberine comes from the berberine plant. It has a similar effect to the GLP-1, there's Ozempic and Mounjaro. Now it's not as dramatic, but at the same time, you can take that without side effects. And it's also good for your gut microbiome. It also has benefits for cholesterol. So I like using that to manage glucose. And again, glucose is something that needs to be managed because keep your glucose down, you're going to live a lot longer. One thing to understand though, when you supplement with berberine, it's not conducive to weight training. It's like taking metformin. They're not conducive to weight training because it lowers your mTOR, which is basically your immune response and your protein synthesis response. It does raise AMPK, which is your longevity part, but at the same time, it's going to affect your strength levels and your recovery. So when I have berberine supplementation recommendations, I make sure that you don't take that within 2 hours before you train or 2 hours after you train. So your mTOR has plenty of time to do its purpose.
What's your source? What's your source for that, Arman? Where do you get it from?
Well, you can shop berberine in a lot of different places, but what I like to use is dihydroberberine. It's more absorbable. Nutricos is the company I get that from, and it's only 200 milligrams because it's so much more absorbable. Most berberine comes in 600 milligram doses, and they typically want you to take it after every meal. And again, you can do that, but if you're training, then you want to have that window. So I just take 2 in the evening after my last meal, and it helps regulate your glucose. And you'll see the results over a period of time if you have your lab work done. Stuff works.
Right. So you got the focus on, so we got inflammation, the glucose management. I think that people don't often talk about that as part of the change. So I think that's a good I can pop that up. The other thing, there are 2 other things that are tossed around, one more commonly than the other, but would love your opinion on it before we move into some of the more specific things, which is one, the free radical talk, and then number 2, the preservation of the telomeres portion. So what's your thinking on both of those and contribution to longevity and what?
Well, so when the free radicals, there's a lot of debate on how much of an effect that really is, but what really is the master antioxidant is glutathione. And so so maintaining high glutathione levels, which decrease over time, is really important because it has a great effect to the body. So what I take for that is a product called Glutaril, which is you rub it into the tissue twice a day, and it's a precursor to make you produce more glutathione. Now you can do a glutathione shot where you take a concentrated level, which I tried that for 1 vial, and that just burns. It's like, so I don't I'm not a big fan of that, but the rubbing on of this Glutaril product, which an Indian professor made, I like it. I've been on it now for probably 3 or 4 months, and you can tell a difference with it, which is pretty impressive. It's kind of like taking NMN and NR, which is another thing we'll talk about. You'll notice an effect from it. Some supplements you just don't notice, but it could show up in your lab work. Like berberine will give you an effect. It'll make your stomach tighten up, especially if you're training and you have some control of your abdominals. You'll notice how it'll tighten your stomach. I've noticed that, and my clients have noticed that too. So it does have an effect with that.
Yeah, Bob will love that comment because he's always talking about you can't bend over unless you pull your stomach in and control that. So he'll be happy you got control of the stomach.
Engage your core. Engage your core.
I was going to say I'm on board with that, Arman. I'm gonna get that stuff and check it out.
There you go. Now, and before then, one other thing, I'm glad you mentioned up the lab work again, because that takes us back to a couple of things I think you mentioned also that are key. That on that C-reactive protein, that test. And so, as you mentioned, that's a measure of inflammation in the body. And I want people to understand there's actually 2 CRPs that you can get taken. And you actually usually have to ask if you're going to do this if you go to Arman's going to, take you down there and say, get tested and all that happens. If you go to your primary care, you've got to ask for those. But they will do it if you ask for it. I think you want to ask for 2 and maybe a third one. Arman's comment on that one. I think you mentioned a third one a while back on our last discussion. But number one, I think the CRP is a measure, C-reactive protein, a general measure of inflammation in the body throughout. But there's another one, especially as one ages or if you've got some conditions, it's either called highly sensitive CRP or it's also known as the heart CRP, that you will actually look at your risk and sort of where you are predictive and the risk for the cardiovascular things. So I think you should ask for both. And then there's another one.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then there's a third one that I actually had done when they were trying to see whether or not I had anything. And thank God I didn't have anything in this case. They actually looked at what's called the SED rate. I think you mentioned SED rate in our last discussion. Another different marker of how fast things settle in the blood and inflammation. They'll tell you what you've got on that. You combine those 3 things, and I think you've got a good measure of where you stand on that, that inflammation.
Well, also on the inflammation, don't forget homocysteine. That one's pretty critical because if it's elevated for a period of time, it'll lead to heart attack and stroke if you don't get it correct. That's right. So,
Well,
Arman,
we're on the topic. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Bob.
Well, Arman, okay, so I'm going to ask you what I consider to be the most practical question that I can think of right now. We are talking, how many supplements have we talked about in this session and the last one we did? Probably 10, 12, 15, right? So if you were going to make a recommendation for like the top 5 supplements, what would it be?
Well, right out of the box, I mean, you got a multivitamin, mineral supplement. You're going to need some fish oil or krill oil if you have joint issues. You're going to need vitamin D3 after you want to have your level checked before you just start taking it. Okay, because if you're really, really low, you need to take a larger dose for a period of time to get it back up to par. And you take vitamin D3 with K2. And then once you start getting down that point, then you can get a little bit more with, like, I like to use taurine. I like creatine. If you're exercising, taurine is really good for the brain. And so that's also good for brain health. But creatine has a lot of brain health function as well. Now, creatine you get from meat, and taurine's an amino acid, so you can get that from meat as well. But again, as we get older, we have this anabolic resistance, so we're not absorbing our protein well, and all that means is breaking down your amino acids. That's what protein becomes, is amino acids, and having those amino acids around as you need them for all these metabolic processes. And that's what people, that's the thing that they don't realize. But as you learn more about it, then you can fix these things pretty easily. Then if you want to get down the more advanced trail, really going into like NMN, which is nicotinamide mononucleotide, or NR, nicotinamide riboside. These are just derivatives of niacin. So you can take niacin and get these same derivatives, but the problem is if you take too much niacin, first of all, when it hits the liver, it's going to give you a flush and turn you red and make you itchy, and so people get really uncomfortable with that. So you can get used to it if you take it on a regular basis, but at the same time, it does lead to glucose issues over time. So you can start seeing your glucose levels ticking up by taking too much niacin. So that's why you use these other hormonal precursors for like NMN and NR to improve your NAD levels, which the NAD is basically your energy system. If you don't have enough NAD, you're going to die in minutes. So your body produces a lot of it, but you need a lot of it, and you get less as A. That's a little bit of a convoluted response, but so let me know what you think.
That's great, because you covered the main things that you would recommend, but to really get scientific about it, you would send somebody out to get labs. And then what are the markers that you're specifically?
Well, there's a lot of markers that I like for liver health. I like to look at the ALT level, alanine transaminase, because if it starts getting over 25, and a lot of people I follow that are experts in that area, Dr. Robert Lustig and Les Luskin and several others, Mark Hyman, you start becoming insulin resistant. So when the ALT liver enzymes start getting slowly elevated, your mitochondria start to get compromised, and so they don't produce enough ATP, enough energy, and that affects your energy system. But it also can lead to insulin resistance, which allows your glucose levels to start ticking up because the liver is too taxed. So that's why you cut back on sugar and carbs to help improve your ALT readings, and then berberine is a good solution for that. So that's one marker I'm always looking at right out of the box. I'm looking at the glucose readings. I'm looking at A1C, because these are simple things to fix that people aren't even aware of. And then after that, I started looking at, do you have any inflammation markers, what's your iron levels? And then on top of that, then we go into the hormone spectrum. So, and I also like to do a fasting insulin, because then I know that's a moving target for medical people to agree on, but still it's a marker. If it's high, it's high. Whether it's a moving target or not, it's a marker that needs to be addressed. So you need to take that into account when you're checking your glucose and your A1C. I mean, I can get into all kinds of stuff in the lab work, but at the same time, when I'm working with people, these are some real quick ones I'm checking right out of the box, because the hormones are low. Most of them are going to be upside down in all different categories. So, you're checking the basics, but for overall health, those are good markers. Another good marker for, overall cardiovascular health is, watching your resting heart rate, how low that goes. And I track that with, I got an Oura ring and I got a Whoop strap. And so I'm comparing the data on that. And my resting heart rate stays around 46, 47 at the lowest point. And so what this is telling me, okay, well, your cardiovascular health is 8 years younger than your actual chronological age and that just came off the Oura ring recently. So a lot of stuff that you can utilize with this data. So that's why I like to, and people should keep their labs and review them. And I know a lot of people do that, and that helps them to better understand what's working in their dietary habits. And again, if you get a DNA methylation test done, then you're going to know what you need for raw materials to function at a higher level versus guessing. So that's the other thing. And that's a one-time test. So it's not something you have to just, I got to do it again and get really expensive. And it can range from $300 to on up, depending on who you use. But you get the data and you get an interpretation that comes with that to help get your mindset to, okay, this is what I need to focus on. These are the foods that are best for me.
Tell our audience where they would go then to get it's not just going to one of the Simon Med scanning places. Where would they get that?
Well, like I like using Life Extension because when you do the lab work with them or the DNA methylation test, they have different ones you can pick from. They're gonna, once you get the results back, they call them up and they go over with. So that's one of my, but that's going to be more expensive. So just keep that in mind. So, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you understand what the test results are going to give. Because like the DNA methylation test I get, it's going to go into inflammation, it's going to go into neurotransmitters, it's going to go into methylation, how you absorb your nutrients. I mean, detoxification, it covers all these different areas based on these mutations you inherited from your parents, and it has the recommendations listed for you as a quick flyer.
And is it always
Arman,
is it covered by insurance?
Well, you can and you can't. The insurance thing is basically a physician, SIC code. So if a physician says, hey, this is in the code, we need this, and then the insurance company can say, okay, we'll cover it if the physician puts it in there. So you can go to your doctor and get some of the stuff done, but if the doctor doesn't know how to do the coding system, then there's not going to be reimbursement insurance, because they have to have a letter of medical necessity or something along that line. See, I'm approved TrueMed. So what that means is if I work with somebody and they do something with me, then they can use their health savings account or the health reimbursement account and get reimbursed some pre-tax dollars, check out what they need to have done. But you can do that through a medical person too. So you need to be your own advocate and learn the different things you can do to monitor all. And it's not that bad once you kind of figure it out. It's a little messy currently because people don't know. You just don't. It's not like you can go to insurance anymore and go, hey, I want to get this done, because they're already paying for all kinds of stuff. So they're like, well, is this really necessary? Is how it's looked at.
Dr. Bob, you had a question?
Yeah, I was my internet went out for a second, but I'm back. Arman, I just want to, you've got so much information. It's fantastic. And I love listening to it and trying to absorb it. I'm wondering, how do people reach you when they want to fine tune their memories on all the stuff you've given us? How do they get a hold of you?
Well, if you want to learn about the DNA testing and lab work, you can go to armaneckelbarger.com and it'll take you to the website there. And there's videos there explaining a lot of what I just talked about and the reasons why people should learn more about having that work done. And it's just a matter of, what lab work you want to get done and what extent. I mean, you can get lab work in all kinds of bundles, but I just use the what I call an elite panel because it gives me everything. And then once you have an elite panel done, well, I guess I'm kind of getting off topic here, but you just, when you check things later, you just check what's not in optimal range. So you save money that way. But yeah, you can find me on social media and like LinkedIn and Instagram or Facebook. But then also I have a YouTube channel as well. So if you do Lead Exec Method, look that up, then it's going to take you to these other channels I have. But it's also in my.
If I want to do a consult with you, how do I do that?
Well, you can communicate through like any of these social media site information I give you. You can access me that way, or you can also email me Arman at leadexecmethod.com, ELITEXEMETHOD.com.
Great.
If you don't have time to take that down, we'll have.
Got it. You can hit this barcode here if you're watching. If you're listening, you can't really do it.
Watching, you got the barcode. Number
Get the
two,
barcode, you can pop in.
we'll have so people will pick it up. We'll have it out on Spotify, and they'll be able to pick it up from the replay and podcast there. We'll also have this up on YouTube at the Wellness Wave Club on YouTube, and so you go into the show notes there. Well, you can listen. You listen to it, you get it. But if you just go into the show notes, you will see those linkages there for Arman as well on that. Then so you've covered quite a bit here on the joint health, the basics, some and other things from longevity. To swing back a little bit before we get into a wrap up here on the health span portion, to say like longevity, but now be healthy, as well as that, to enjoy it. I always say I like to help people avoid a life of diminished capacity, be a super ager. And for those, it's more common, when I go out there and I put things in for us to get people to notice, to find the show, I'll use anti-aging, but I don't like anti-aging. I'm pro-aging. I like to talk about the super aging, which means you take that 120 lifespan, and so you should be able to get there. And so you want to be 80 and perform at the norm of somebody who is 55. That's super aging, and that's that health span. So in addition to that joint health, I think in there I'm thinking about to my home care days, the challenges people had is the cognition. You want the cognition to be up there. You want the endurance to be up there, and you've already touched on the strength, so I don't want you to necessarily go back to that. Do you take those, and maybe mobility? And I don't know boy, I will call you the expert if you find a way to tie supplementation to mobility. But certainly on endurance and cognition, anything else you would say, or even you'd want to repeat it to highlight it in those areas to maintain that, what would you say, Arman?
Well, on endurance, some of the things I like to do is beef liver. Either eat beef liver or eat beef liver capsules, because they're high in heavy iron, and they help your red blood cell count, which helps to oxygenate the blood. And every time I like to use those for contest prep, because your endurance is so much better and your strength is good. And it's actual protein. So you've got a lot of different great components that come with it. Now, if you don't like to eat liver, just take the capsules. You got to take them a little bit of water, because they're capsules. Make sure they get down to trunk. But the performance I get from that is great. Then another performance enhancement I like is beta alanine. Now, the recommended dose is 3,200 milligrams, but I like to do 4 grams of beta alanine, and that gives you a little bit of a flush when it hits the liver, similar to niacin, but it's pretty mild. But it kind of preps you for your training, so there's benefits to that. And you will notice with the beta alanine, it improves your pH level, so you don't get the lactic acid buildup quite so quick. You're still going to get it, but it allows you to squeeze out a few more reps. And that's why a lot of athletes use beta alanine as part of their protocol for training. It's pretty common. Olympic athletes use it, pro athletes use it, that kind of thing.
What would we talked a lot about joint health, obviously so important you get up there here, but what about the cog? What's mentioned fish oil having some? I've always heard that fish is brain food.
It is.
Yeah. So what are some other things? I've heard quite a bit recently about ashwagandha and other things like that. They're good for brain health.
Well, like ashwagandha and astragalus, they help with keeping your stress down, and so and they also supposed to help with telomere length as another side effect of that. But yeah, it has more of a calming effect. So I actually take those. I take those actually in the morning. Versus, so a lot of times I recommend you take that at sleep. So I like that. I like to take the fish oil. DHA is really important for helping the brain to have as much blood flow as possible. Then you have ginkgo biloba has some benefits, and I didn't really notice so much from that, but you kind of combine it with other things, it can give you some extra turn. And then taurine, like I mentioned before, is really good, because a lot of these energy drinks have taurine in them, and when you take those energy drinks, and I'm not a big fan of energy drinks, but the taurine in there does give you some good mental clarity along with the caffeine, so it does have that kind of effect. And I've been experimenting with 6 grams of taurine before I go to bed, and I've kind of really started to notice how when I wake up, my clarity is, and so I think that's starting to have an effect. Now I'm doing 6 grams of that, so the dose can range from 500 milligrams to 6 grams, but I like that. And then huperzine is another one that's pretty common that is recommended for brain health and function. And then pictotine, I don't know how you say that one, but it has some benefits. So you'll buy a lot of these brain formulas will have these kind of combined in one formula. So you just have to kind of shop around for those.
I appreciate that. Well, before we go into our final segment here, I want to help our listeners understand how they could start to support their own with our sponsor, Better Off. Now, according to independent studies and also PubMed wellmed.org. This supplement can improve your energy level, enhance cognitive function, support health aging while boosting. It has over 85 plus trace minerals and bioactive compounds. It's the pure Himalayan Shilajit, and I have the honey sticks now. Enjoy a little easier to take, straight resin, and that's available thebetteralt.com, GNC, and we'll also link here. Back to the show, Tim.
All right, Arman. So you've covered a lot of ground here for us, a lot of knowledge. I guess what I would ask of you at this point too is to wrap up here. How would you reiterate for people now that you just want to start looking at or just working on their longevity? Reiterate the basics you want to go with that, and then talk to again, your approach or how you would work with them to personalize. Because with all that knowledge that you've got there, not only just the testing, but how do you walk your clients through personalization? Because to add on to this, things you go through I'd forgotten about some of the things you mentioned. There was a drink out there by a company, I'll mention the company, they're now defunct, called Kibana, that had that, had the taurine in it, had the other minutes, and it was a drink, and it was beautiful. I wish that was still around. You could take that, and I really could feel the cognitive performance enhanced for a good period of time on that. But that to study everything that you put in there, that's years you put in there, and then this is almost aside from how you take care of your family, and I know you enjoy them. This is your life. So what's the most efficient? So one, the basic net. You'll give the people the basics again they can go on through, but then to get to the advanced, talk to them about how they should really how they can work with you to personalize that. They really want to get into the advanced portion.
Okay, you want me to go through the basics and then go to the advanced? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, the basics is just the multivitamin mineral supplement. Get a high quality one. Make sure it's methylated, not have folic acid in it. Because if you have a certain gene mutation, you won't be able to convert to folic acid. There's a lot of research on that now. So that's important. And the fish oil is a simple fix. Or if you eat a lot of fish, you don't have to do that so much. But if not, convenience of fish oil is good. Make sure the fish oil is micronized or filtered, so there's no heavy metals in it. So keep that in mind. That's why small fish are better. Sardines are a really good form of fish oil if you don't want to take the capsule. And krill oil for joint health. And then I like to do creatine, especially if you're really active. And if you have any kind of inflammation markers from having lab work done, a B complex is going to be the first thing to go with. And then add some trimethylglycine in there. So these are very inexpensive solutions. These aren't super expensive. Okay, so that's the one thing I want to focus on. Because once you start going into, even taurine's pretty inexpensive and creatine's pretty inexpensive. But when you start getting into the other products like calcium alpha ketoglutarate, NMN and NR, glutaril, and these other products, you're looking at a minimum $60 to $150 a month to have these other supplements. So that you have to really critically decide, okay, what makes sense for my budget, and then what I want to get out of this. So one of the things I can help people with mostly is because I've already taken them and I know how they affected me, and I give you my ins and outs on my personal description of how it worked for me. But my protocol for the more advanced is going to be calcium alpha ketoglutarate.
Well, just on the advanced. I don't necessarily want you to give away that not even secret sauce, because you want to give it away, but it's more. I'll rephrase the question. I'll quit going to the IBM way of just ask the open-ended questions and see what flows. I'll ask it more directed on this one, which is, and for those of you who don't know, I spent 23 years at IBM back in the old days when they had to go through training for 12 to 18 months before they'd let you see a client. They drill these things into you. So here I am, almost as old as Bob Levine, and I still remember it.
What's the brain supplement for memory? I don't remember.
But it's if I wanted to, and for those, this will tell you I'm hesitant because I am putting Arman on the spot here because we didn't go into this. We don't rehearse all these questions. So Arman, let's just say, no, don't come to me for that, and that's okay. But let's just say, Arman, so say, Arman, hey, what you talked about was beautiful. I got your basics. I'm going to start with these basics, but I really want you to help me personalize this for. Can I just come to you for so you do a lot of things with your clients to really help them out. Can I just come to you for a supplementation assessment and personalization plan? Is that something you'll do with someone?
Yeah, I mean, I work with people based on what I feel they need help with. If somebody's really knowledgeable, then it's like, okay, well, and I feel like I got a good handle on it. There's no sense going down that repeating what they're doing. They're aware of it, but then I can enlighten them. Okay, here's some other enhancements since you understand that real well that you can consider, and here's what's involved with it. But a lot of the stuff I'm doing with people, the customization comes from what's in the lab and what's in their testing. Because once I see what's in there, I know what basic things will work. Also, the other basic one just want to repeat is, berberine for your glucose management, because that's really important. Most people don't realize that. But when I'm working with people and I see what comes back in the lab work, and again, I'm not a physician, I'm not giving medical advice, so I have medical teams that review this information. I'm the guy that helps to quarterback and integrate that once we have the data, because medical people, they're not good with integration of some of these things because of, the moving parts to it. So I figured that out, but I had the resource to go to say, hey, what should we do in this situation because of this lab work here, and then check it. And really nice when you check it and it's improving, then everybody's like, oh, okay, this is good news. But also you'll feel it. People start feeling it pretty quickly, because if I don't get them results pretty quickly, they're like, what's this all about? So, but I'm able to do it because I know what most of these cases are going to be, because I've done so many of them, and also I was experimenting on myself, and I'm pretty conditioned for a lot of things that I've already tried. And if it hits me and works with me after all the conditioning I have, it's like, I got more room for improvement, and we all have more room to improve. So it's just a matter of, okay, keep moving forward, keep working, putting the pieces of puzzle in that are working, and just keep refining that process. And so as we age and we can do these things, that you can actually slow down the aging process. Now you're getting a good rate of return, because you don't get sick, you don't have to go to the doctor, you're not going to be on prescriptions. You're eliminating a lot of the things that cause most of the problems. Is again, you're solving root cause issues, because you're giving the body the raw materials it needs to do what it needs. And it's the human body's phenomenal when you give it the right stuff. It heals quickly. So again, if you keep your hormone levels up like you need to, then everything works really well. So it's a well-oiled machine. But if you don't give it the right raw materials or right nutrition, it's just like anything else out there. It slowly starts to decay, gets worse, and then you start having these issues coming up. Mobility gets in the way because you don't feel good, you don't get around as well, and then the muscles get stiff because you're not giving it enough of the right nutrients or working the muscle like you need to. You got to have some stress in the body. That's just how the world turns with the human body. It's designed for stress.
All right, thank you.
Give it all comfort, it's just gonna deteriorate quickly.
All right. Yeah, our time's really flying. I'm gonna turn over to Breck. Appreciate that. Breck, if you got any questions for
Just real simple lifestyle changes that will help support internalized supplement talk. So just real quick, what are some good lifestyle?
Well, first and foremost, sleep. Focus on your sleep. That's when all the repair, all the things that need to get done, the brain gets washed, flushed. You got to work on your 7 to 8 hours, depending on the person. It could be a little bit less, but the best thing to do is track it, and you can see if you're on target. And I highly recommend it. So I've learned a lot on that. Exercise. You can't go wrong with exercise. It helps flush a lot of toxins from the sweat. It helps get blood flow up. It helps healing. And then you got to load the bone a little bit with some resistance. Your body's designed to handle resistance. How it evolved over time. So those are real simple things. And then on mobility, you use a roller and make sure the tissues aren't getting knots in them and stiff. I know Dr. Bob can have a lot to say on that too, because without mobility, you're kind of be hamstring on trying to get anything done.
That's true.
The more you're keeping all these things integrated, then you're going to feel bulletproof. When you're in your 30s and 40s, at least in your 30s, you feel bulletproof. You wake up, nothing's bothering you. Let's keep that going a little longer. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I'll add 2 things to that, Arman. Thanks for all that information. One thing I'll add is de-stressing is super important. It's got to be done.
Breath work is very good.
Yeah, and also not eating unprocessed foods, natural foods, so important, and balancing your intake of carbohydrates, protein, fats. If people did those things and all the stuff you mentioned, they're going to live a long, healthy life.
All right, then I'll add to that. It goes back to you gotta make these things a daily part of your life, integrate into it. And so that's amazing how that the stuff with the elderly always comes back to me a little bit, and various things. So I'm much ingrained in that. So we all used to have medication reminders, and you'd set up little medication reminders for you. And there's even equipment that would at certain times of the day prompt you out and put it out there with all the supplementation Arman's got for you. You need those supplementation reminders. Put that on your calendar, but also put in these other things for us, because you got to make it a way of, as Bob and Breck and I always talk about, you got to make this stuff a way of being for yourself. And the best way to make it a way of being for yourself is to get it on your calendar and get it scheduled and follow that and execute against it. Right?
One more thing. The body likes everything to be regular, and the more you stay consistent with it, the body can thrive on it.
Absolutely. Tim, I just had to bring up, I forgot one thing, and I know you're going to know what I forgot, that the happiness component is really important, right?
It's true.
Having great relationships.
It is. That's right. It is good. It really is good medicine. Laughter is a good medicine. It releases things in the body. Certainly keeps you in the right frame of mind to execute things there. Breck, anything you want to add before we wrap up here?
No, just appreciate your time again and joining us today on Arman, and also for those that are listening live, Facebook, and you're joining us on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Arman.
Thanks, everyone.
Always
Take
fun,
care.
guys.
Good supplementing until we meet again. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.